Today I'll be answering all your student questions so you can get better grades on your report cards. As you guys know, I have a lot of students who want to get better at school who are new followers on my YouTube channel. So today it's going to be a Q&A. I've seen people do this in other fields on YouTube, but basically they just answer a lot of the most upvoted Q&A questions. So I went ahead and asked, what do you want to see a video on, in my YouTube community section, and I got 28 comments, and I'm just going to go through and answer some of the most upvoted comments. So the first one comes from Zara Sheik, and he asks how to vitalize time correctly in your day for online school. Now, I don't know what vitalize mean. I'm assuming this is not a native American English speaker. Maybe that means how do you be productive in your day for online school. So if that is the case, then I would say the answer to that is you have to understand fundamentals of productivity. So there's a lot of blogs, articles, videos on these fundamentals. I love the site asianproductivity.com, but I also have a website, willyoulaugh.com, and if you use the search function, you can find some time management articles on there. But I would say some of the main productivity tips you should consider are eliminating distraction. So certain things, if you take them out of your environment, you won't be sucked into them, like social media and stuff like that. There are site blockers, you can lock your phone away and so forth. And then another part is actually making sure you make the most of your time in online school. I really think that you should write out when you shift gears, and that'll make you aware of when you goof off. It's usually a lot more than you think. I did this a few years ago, and it was like something like this: 10 minutes of focus on school, 7 minutes of daydreaming, 9 minutes where I went to the bathroom, 6 minutes of Instagram, 21 minutes of YouTube. And turns out I was not as productive as I thought. When you added it all up, I only spent maybe a third of as much time as I thought I did on school, homework, studying, and a lot more of my time on goofing off. Those 5 minutes here and there add up. So those are some fundamentals of productivity. There's a lot more. If you can get more specific in your question on like where you're struggling, what exactly your online school is, I can be of more help there. So another question, the next upvoted question also comes from Zara, but I'm going to give some other people a chance to answer some questions first. So Matthew KH asked for Pomodoro studying tips. So I've already done a few videos on Pomodoro on my YouTube. Check those out if you don't know what it is. But the long and short of it is you set a timer for 25 minutes for focused work, and then 5 minutes of break. I personally have experimented with different time allotments. So there's 25 minutes, 40 minutes, 15 minutes. And for me, I prefer longer periods. So I would say around 40 minutes is a sweet spot. I tend to be able to, once I get going, I don't want to stop. I want to continue focused work. But well, that's one tip I found, that everyone's different, and for me, I like a little longer stretch and then maybe a little longer break afterwards. I think what's important for me is to actually take those breaks. Sometimes the breaks have to be something that actually isn't just more social media or more of you goofing off, because it just doesn't get you back into the setting in the same way. It's almost like if you choose to use social media, it can just screw you up, suck you in, spend more time, and you don't really feel as refreshed as you think. So ideally, I like to take a short walk around the neighborhood, socially distant, a walk through nature if you can, or just something where I'm stretching, I'm doing a little yoga, or shaking myself off, loosening myself so I can relax and eliminate the tension. Those small breaks really do refresh your mind And if you don't take them, you do end up being much more exhausted than you think, even if you think you're this macho person who can just power through it for hours on end. So I really recommend doing that. For me, I found a kind of like 40-10 split is the best for me, sometimes 40-15. Um, but it does vary. Sometimes I'm definitely more of a focused, longer duration guy, so sometimes it's 1 hour and 15. So find your thing. For me, I struggle with remember to actually take those breaks, but I think it's very much worth it. There's even apps and extensions on your browser that will basically act as a Pomodoro for you, and it's a timer. And then when you turn the timer on, it blocks all the sites that you don't want to go on, and then after the timer ends, then it opens it up. That's another potential way of doing Pomodoro. But once again, you don't want to take the breaks by just going on your phone or playing video games or social media. It really, I don't think, truly gives your mind a break as you might think. Okay, next question. Chief Sexpreme, okay, that's quite a name. He asked for remote learning tips. So I think this is a definitely a very asked for question. Um, I do have videos on them already, and I told Chief, you gotta check those out. I've already searched my channel. I've done videos on this. He wants more on these. So of course, people have different opinions on remote learning. I've heard people say that their grades were doing very well and then tanked. Others have said, wow, this is easier than, real school. You don't have to pay as much attention. The classes are easier. Everything's a lot easier to get done. So for me personally, I think if you want to improve with remote learning, and I know this is a huge topic, it's much more reliant on you. When you're in person, I believe there's so much more motivation or kind of impetus. It's like almost like a different style of work, I guess you could call it. I would say the first thing is don't fall into the mistake of just thinking, well, we'll go back to school eventually. I'm just screwed here. And then just accept your bad grades. I think that's something that I've made the mistake of doing, and others have made a mistake of doing. Because that year-long, 2 years, 3 years of bad grades can create bad habits. It can create a bad look on your final report that you send to colleges if you're already in high school. And even if you're not, it creates bad momentum and bad habits that are hard to break and even harder to escape. So I would still try my hardest in remote learning, and just like with the school system, this is something that you can hack, that you can take control of. So the next thing would be mindset. And as I've mentioned already, mindset's incredibly important. I've gotten a lot of comments come back to me and say, wow, I've really changed my grades, I've changed my attitude, I've changed my mindset. And the mindset change is probably the most beneficial thing. I've gotten much better grades just because how I'm seeing school differently. So as I mentioned in other videos, you have to change your mindset. Rather than thinking, this just sucks, this is horrible, remote school sucks, or whatever you want to think what's a winner's mindset. And for me, a winner's mindset here is, okay, this is a new playing field, a new style of succeeding. How can I do the best in this new format? I'm always on the computer watching these remote classes. There's pros and cons to that. And how do I hack the system so that I succeed in this environment too? And when you start asking yourself these questions, you realize, okay, same end goals, different playing field. How do I hack that? So oftentimes, for me, I look for those opportunities. One being, hey, less people are willing to ask questions in this online environment. Or, I have more of a direct online access to teachers. So what can I do there? Well, I've always found that asking questions helps me clarify and get a better understanding of certain topics in class. If no one else is asking questions, I'll ask a question, and every class I get one more question in, and I learn something more to clarify about a specific topic that could be huge on impact on test day. Also, the teacher's probably checking email more. That means you gotta go ask. You gotta go ask. Send emails. You know, clarify about this. Ask, hey, is this going to be tested on? Oh, what could you give me like a little primer on what else is being tested on? So those are things as well. You want to take the standard principles that you've learned from your real world. Those videos that I've made still apply to an extent. Don't just throw them out the window. Those ideas about how the frequency of how you study is more important than just one overnight binge session. So you gotta keep doing that. You still gotta review as you did prior to remote learning. You don't just throw all those out the window because it's remote learning. You still do the whole exercise I told you, where rather than cramming the night before, you study and review certain concepts, maybe 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks, and that repetition really helps. I gotta tell you, when I first heard this tip 10 years ago, I thought that was good stuff, but I didn't necessarily believe who told me, even though it was a teacher, because I was just like, oh, that's just another generic tip, and I never did it. You have to actually take what I teach you and test it out and try it out, because it works. And so you want to take those normal tips, apply them, and then in terms of remote learning, find out ways of hacking the system. There's going to be new avenues, new opportunities because it's remote. Hey, you're going to be sitting at home at the comfort of your own home. So what does that mean? Where's the pros and where are the cons? Ask yourself that and use a winner's mindset to be resourceful enough to figure out, how can I hack the system? What's holding me back? You know what's holding me back? What I think might be holding me back? The fact that you're in the comfort of your home. If you're on your couch and the TV's next to you and then you have a video game in your hand, that's going to distract you from ever paying attention in class. And now you got to keep asking yourself, do you need to pay attention? Sometimes you do. And so take those all away. Find a work room. Find an area where you don't have too much comfort. And that's your designated work situation. You have to use standard work from home tips as well. Now, what might be, so that was a con. What's a pro? Well, what about working effectively? How can you work most effectively when you're in class? Well, in class, the teacher can't monitor you as much. There's just a whole room of Zoom people, and usually they can't just check if someone's goofing off or pretending to be there. They could turn off their video call. They could have a loop playing. So on one hand, you have a lot more liberation and freedom to just screw around on the internet, play Among Us or some game while the teacher's talking. So while that could be a con, depending on how you use it, how can it be a pro? Well, most of your competition, your other students, are likely screwed up. They're also on social media and not listening to the teacher, so their average scores are going to be lower as well. So if you recognize that and you use that to your advantage and say, okay, I'm not going to be one of those people who's just completely lost out there because they're on this remote environment, then you'll have that advantage. So think about that. Use your own resourcefulness. It's not about just me throwing tips at you. It's about adopting that winner's mindset and being able to pick out your own tips with that system. It's about learning how to fish, not just taking a fish. Okay, here's another question. Can you do a specific subject like calculus or physics? I think there's specific videos on that already. If you go to udemy.com, if you go to skillshare.com, or if you just go to youtube.com and you search for Calculus 101, Physics 101, they have videos that they do that are much better than I can ever do. They have specifics, they have graphics, they have animations on this. And now they know how to do it in fun, cool ways. You know, sometimes they'll throw in humor or entertainment or um, even funny animations. So there's so many opportunities out there. I don't think you need a video from me on a topic. I would say the best thing that I've been able to do to master these skills when one time I sucked at them is review. Do the work after school. That was the hugest game changer for me. I used to skip the homework assignments. I used to not review everything I learned, uh, and I didn't pay attention in class. But when I did all those things after class, and with repetition, I reviewed and reviewed until I understood it completely. I had such an advantage. People were wondering, man, how are you getting all these straight A's on, or how are you doing so well in school? Because rather than just goofing off and passing off on this, I would go home and that equation, that formula, I would spend a lot of time. Sometimes it'd just be 30 minutes, but sometimes it'd be an hour or so. It all depends. Sometimes it'd be 10 minutes. It depends on how long it took me until I really understood the problem. And so what they didn't understand was all of a sudden I had this huge shadow history of all this work that I was putting in behind the scenes all of a sudden. So that's your tip for there. Okay, Gabriella Texiera asks, a Q&A answering your subscribers' questions. Your videos inspire and motivate me so much better, improve myself. Thank you for that time and effort and work. Okay, so that's what you're getting here. Let's see what the next question is. Lucas says, I know I already commented, but can you give me some advice? So this year, to get into math honors, you had to get an average above 95. This quarter, I got an average of 97 all the way until the last 3 assignments. Congrats. I messed up hard and lost all confidence, making me fail the other 2 assignments, and now my math average is way lower. So I did give him a comment reply, but I wanted to do a more thorough response here. So Lucas, first off, as I said in my comment, everyone slips up. You're clearly a high performer already. You're doing really well. I mean, 95 is difficult. You hit a 97, you're clearly already up there. You're not one of those straight D or straight F students who's climbing all the way up. You're already performing on this high level. And so just because it seems like you slipped up once and you lost your confidence, you gotta not beat yourself up over it. I wrote this blog post about a year ago on my site around this study about how these people who kind of beat themselves up versus those who don't tend to end up doing worse later in terms of test scores. So you have to choose the mindset, the habit of learning from your mistake and then moving on. There's a point where dwelling on something is beneficial and then when it's not. And that's usually something that I've had to switch up in my game where, okay, at this point I've learned my lessons. Any further dwelling on it is just going to make me feel horrible, make me feel negative, and make me perform worse. So don't spend too much time doing that, especially since you're already such a high performer and you're already consistently doing well. Just don't let one assignment derail you so much. Another thing is, don't think that you have to hit it out of the park every assignment. If you miss 1 or 2 or 3, I care more about consistency. If you're still getting A's in general, just because you miss a math honors 1 quarter, how much does that really matter in the long scheme of things? Probably not much. So you don't want to just be someone who's like performing really well and then you slip up once and then you just tank for the next few quarters. You want to be someone who's like, okay, I did well this quarter. I did a little less well this quarter. That doesn't matter. Okay, I did even better the next quarter. I did the same the next quarter. I did a little less the next quarter. But I'm not going to, roast myself or feel horrible because of that. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. Why did I screw up this assignment? Ever hear of the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? It's a book on a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. These are two different mindsets towards success, and the growth one is successful. The fixed mindset has a lot of these false beliefs that this is who I am, I can't change, this, I can't improve. So you have to realize that you can improve it, and to do that, you can't see these failures as just I'm done for, I failed. This is who I am, and I can't do better or worse. If I failed, I have to. That's a bad mindset to have. Your failures, how are you supposed to grow and learn if you don't fail? Those failures, those mistakes, whether that's basketball or school, that's how you tweak your game and improve. If you're dribbling one way and then you make a mistake, you don't just go home and say, I'm done for. This is, the extent of my basketball game and I failed. No, your coach, winners say, okay, my coach gave me feedback that I made a mistake in my dribbling. How can I fix that? And then all of a sudden you fix it and your game's on a higher level. It's about growth, not just, seeing yourself, this is where you are. So again, you got to work on your mindset and then what you do from it. I always kind of looked at what's the end goal here. And for me, I never really focused as much on honor roll as other people did. Yes, it's nice to have, and yes, sometimes they would give pizza parties or something to the people who hit honor roll. Quite frankly, when I really started to care about the pizza parties and honor roll, the school canceled them for some reason. I guess they ran out of budget. So that was a bit of a bummer anyways. But so all you really got was this title of honor roll. And I realized, well, why does that matter? All I care about is getting the final grade at the end of the year. At least in my school, you got quarter grades and then midterm grades, right? And then a final grade and then a midterm grade. And then they average all that together to get the final grade on your report card. And that was the grade that colleges would see. So if I got 2 A's and then 2 B's from all 4 of those quarters, I didn't care about the B's as much. I just cared about the overall year-long average. So, some people, they were obsessed, oh, I only got a 99%, not 100%. It wasn't perfect enough. It's like, sure, you're playing your game on the micro at a high level, but on the macro, why are you doing this? And does that even matter? Quite frankly, maybe it doesn't. I mean, I've even done a video on how, B or C students oftentimes end up being more successful than A students. So in the high macro, you got to think about that as well. So I think that's all of the major questions. I have one more question on, Advital Patel says, how to make friends during online school. So I've done videos on how to make friends in real life. Online school is a bit different. You're closed off from the world. However, you can still do this. And I did a video that did touch on making friends in general, and there was an online school segment. So check that one out. But I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be difficult, and depending on how you throw it and fill it out, you can ultimately maybe let it affect your grades. But if you do it smartly, you can have friends and you won't have it affect your grades negatively. How can you do this? Well, one way is to hang out with people who are smarter and better performers in school than you. But another way is to just make sure that you have the initiative. So choosing friends is one thing, but how do you actually make friends when the extent of your opportunities is basically through Zoom calls where the teacher's talking for most of it? Well, I would say use your initiative. I would do something, if you have initiative and resourcefulness, which is something anyone can cultivate, you could come up with ideas. You could come up with ideas that are even better than mine. So that's the first thing. But using my own, I would say one thing is, what if you went up to each teacher via Zoom, before the class or via email, and you said something like, "Hey, I recognize that it is very difficult to make friends right now because of the pandemic, and we're all the students are locked in at home with their families. Could you potentially announce at the beginning or end of your class that for our mental health, we're having some type of friendship mixer or friendship study group or just study group. And here is the email, or here's the Zoom invite and time, and we're going to be doing this weekly. And anyone who's interested can join, and then we can have a virtual study group." I'm sure there's already stuff like this. There's already resourceful students who've already come up with things like this. So when you see those things, take advantage of them. Say yes rather than no. Stop trying to blow them off if you see another student organizing it. If not, make an attempt to organize it. Chances are, not everyone's going to show up because they're lazy or they're blowing it off or they're not as concerned about making friends currently. But maybe not. Maybe all of them want to as well. So you can do that, and you can, approach the teacher. And, some teachers, depending on how you phrase it and pitch it, they'll be more than happy about that because they care about the students. They care about their mental health as well. They'd be more than happy to announce something like that, and they can see the value of it. Another thing would just be to go to a few individuals. Usually when there's a Zoom or a chat or something like that, you have access to their names. You have emails, access to them, or you can talk to them in chat or direct message them, or you can find them on Instagram or something like that, or Facebook. If not, be resourceful. You could go through the teacher and ask for their names. But you can still organize maybe a smaller, more intimate, direct study group with a few people that you click with, that you're friendly with, that you can talk to. And then maybe like every day after class, you can have a Zoom study session, a Google Hangout session, or maybe it's once a week. So there's a lot to do, and I gotta say, with remote learning, it's tough. I get it. I can't say it's great. I can't say it's perfect, but neither was in-person school. In-person school, you can still have issues making friends. You can still have issues with all sorts of stuff. I've been there. So there's a reason I changed my Instagram username to No Excuses Will. It's because, I'm not saying that you can just do everything when you eliminate excuses, but chances are you do have excuses that aren't true, that you can push aside. And if you do, you can still succeed in the real world. You can still succeed in school. And you have to eliminate those excuses, find out what they are, delete them, and 10x your results. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. See you later.